Let's get started. Let's get started. Hello and welcome. Just before we dive into the meat of our presentation, I'm going to invite you to hop on over to iridology.education. When you see that little pop-up box, you know those pop-up boxes that we love to hate, and it asks you if you want to receive let's turn this mic around, a downloadable constitutional iridology map, just opt in because that'll put you on the list to let you know when we're doing these free events and these free web classes and what the topics are, right? And it'll also get you a downloadable iridology map. So if you're doing that right now, give me a thumbs up when you're done. We'll give you just a minute if you want to hop on over there right now. I promise it will only take you a minute. And we will get on from there. Hi, Plant-Based. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us on Instagram Live today. Really appreciate that. All righty. So we are going to get going. Now, I'm going to introduce myself before we get too far. My name is Judith Cobb, and I am a holistic practitioner. I've been in business for 40 years. That's 40 years. I am a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and a certified iridology instructor. And I am also the mom of 7 and the grandma of 8 and the wife of 1. Yeah. All righty. So I'd love it if you would let me know where you're from. Oh, thank you so much, Plant-Based. I love that enthusiasm. Woohoo! Like it. Okay, right on. Broken bones, surgeries, and iris changes. We are going to tell the story of moi from this time last year. And, oh, thank you, Plant-Based. She's saying that's wonderful that we've got so many kids and I've got my husband. That's a good thing. I agree. And she's watching from Berlin. Woohoo! What time is it in Berlin? What is our time change in Berlin? It must be like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night there, maybe? I would love to know what time it is for you. That's just so cool. All right. So last year I was 50, well, when this happened, I was 58, 59 years old. I had never broken a bone in my life. Never. And then in the spring, I guess I decided I need to catch up. Plant-Based says it's 6 p.m. and Dialect says, hi there. Hi there. Good to see you. I thought I should get caught up because everybody I knew had broken bones, right? So in March of last year, March 2019, I was out early in the morning going to catch public transit to get to a seminar downtown. And springtime here in Calgary is iffy, as in it gets really warm in the daytime, which causes a lot of meltage of snow. And then in the nighttime, any of that has run across the sidewalks turns into an absolute skating rink. I couldn't see the ice. It was early in the morning, like it was 7 in the morning, which is still very dark here in March. And I hit the ice, landed on my left arm and broke both of the bones. Okay, we're gonna see x-rays about this. I'm not making this stuff up. And you can maybe even still see the one scar here between the tendons and the other scar coming down the side of my arm. You can see a lumpy thing in there. We'll talk about what that is too. And then I had no longer, I was out of the cast, so that we're talking, 6 weeks later, I'm out of the cast, 6, 7, 8 weeks later, whatever it was, because first you get a surgical cast that only stays on for 2 weeks, and then you get a real cast that's on for another 4 to 6 weeks. So I had the second cast off for about a week, and I was visiting my son. We were visiting our son. Hubby was with me, and Mother's Day. 2019, happy Mother's Day, right? And I slipped on the stairs going downstairs at his house, landed solidly on my elbow, and literally broke the end. I don't know if you can see the scar on there. Broke the end of my elbow right off my arm, right? And so we're going to look at x-rays of all of this. I hope you're not squeamish. And we are going to talk about, we're going to look at the eye pictures that were taken real close to the same time, right after these things had happened and for a few months afterwards, to look at how the eyes change. All right, this is one of those things that is near and dear to my heart because this is really myth busting here is what we're doing. Now, some of you may be familiar with the owl story, which is where iridology supposedly began in the modern age. How many of you have heard the owl story? I'd love to see a show of hands If you've heard the owl story, just raise your hand or let me know. Okay, so the story goes that this Ignaz von Petschle was a young boy, about 11 years old, and from there the story gets really fuzzy. He caught, he trapped, he came upon, we're not sure which, an owl or a hawk, don't know which, that had a broken leg or wing, not sure which. So you can see how many variables are. It's kind of like a choose your ending story, but for kids, right? The story goes on that Ignaz saw, oh, I can't say your name, Laika Slila. Your name looks familiar. I know I've seen you in other places that we're hanging out together. Nice to see you. So Ignaz noticed, as an 11-year-old boy with this wild animal, wild bird, whatever it was, that there was a dark line in the owl's eye. And we're not sure if he actually saw it forming because the leg or the wing broke while he was trying to catch this animal, or we're not sure if he just noticed that it was there. And Sarge says he's heard this story. Right on, good job. And so, but the story goes that as he nursed this wild bird back to health, he saw this line disappear. All right, so that's all really important. Here's something that's as important, if not more important. Bill Cardona is one of the two people, he and Harry Wolff brought constitutional iridology to North America in the late 70s, early 80s. And Bill and Harry are both very critical thinkers. Bill is my constitutional iridology instructor. I certified under him in 1993. Bill says the modern iridology can't explain the owl story. Von Petschle's story from a very long time ago has not been reproduced. You would think that if a bird's eye was going to change like that with a broken leg or a broken wing, that in all of these bird rescue facilities that we have, particularly after oil spills, or just the wild game rehabilitation hospitals that we have, you would think that a veterinarian would have noticed this at some point in time, right? Wouldn't you think that in the last 150 to 200 years, somebody would have noticed something? So Bill goes on, it's just a waste of time to repeat it. It just creates confusion. Critical thinking is required when applied to any topic. All right, so enough said about that. Let's move forward, because I have a lovely iridology camera, and sometimes I even put it on the same settings for repeat eyes. So I'm going to be upfront and tell you that while I've noted my f-stop and shutter speed and ISO for this image, the images are not all on the same settings. So that is one critical factor that we need to be aware of here, right? As scientists, we need to control all the parameters in an experiment that we possibly can. But what we're actually looking at here, we're not looking for color change. We're not looking for pigment. We are looking for fiber structure. And that is what is so important here. We are looking for fiber structure. So just about exactly 2 years before I broke my arm, my left arm, all the breaks were on this left arm. This is what the arm zone in my eye looked like. So for those of you who are on Instagram, I'm going to move my camera closer so you can get a better look at that fiber structure, okay? Brilliant. So you can see that really well, I hope. Okay, so that's what it looked like. I want you to hold that in your mind's eye, the fibers, the rarefactions or the gray areas between. Remember also that fibers appear to change their shape when the pupil changes its shape, right? Or size rather, when the pupil changes its size, because if the pupil gets bigger, the fibers that are here get compressed into a smaller area. And in order for that to happen, they don't telescope, they wave, right? They get crinkly. That is not indication of healing or of breakdown. It is simply a function of pupil size. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, let me know. Does that make sense? Okay, so then we're going to hold this image in our eyes while you're letting me know if this is all making sense so far. This is me in the ER waiting to be seen by a doctor. All I could do was kind of recline back in a very bad armchair. And Slila says it makes sense. Yes, thank you for that. Appreciate that. You can see right here. but that is not how a wrist is supposed to look, right? My wrist does not have this interesting bump right here anymore. Huh. We had no idea how bad this really was. So the slip and the fall that morning, or that morning, and here we are in the ER, right? It was interesting because I was a block and a half away from home when this happened. My husband and my daughter, our youngest daughter who still live at home, had already left for the day, and they were together and they were at something that they couldn't leave. I texted her. So here I am on the ice trying to not throw up, and they're like, thank you so much. It is all healed now. See, which is great, but thank you so much. It was sad, but I learned an awful lot. And so here I am laying on the ground on the ice, texting my daughter because I knew she would be able to see her phone better than my husband could, and just said, I slipped on the ice, I've broken my wrist, I'm going to try to get home. I can't tell you how long it took me to walk that block and a half because I was nauseous, I was in shock, I didn't know what else to do, but I finally got home, managed to unlock the back door. Heaven knows how I got my key out, and just waited sitting inside the back door for my husband and daughter to get home, which was about 45 minutes later. So they came in. My daughter, who had done 3 years of sports medicine, so she understands a little bit of triage and a little bit of splinting and whatnot, took one look at me and she said, Mom, what do you want to do? I said, well, first I want to get out of my really nice clothes because I'm afraid they're going to cut my clothes off when I go to the hospital. So she helped me get changed into pajama pants and a t-shirt, or some just, yeah, is this at home? This picture, yeah, this is, yeah. So I'm just, yeah, I'm in my pajama pants and a t-shirt there. Yeah, just real basic stuff, right? And wrapped me in a blanket and put me in the car, and off we went. So this is the first x-ray of the one side. Your wrist isn't supposed to have pointy bits in it like this. Serious. And the other bone, so that is for, I'm not even sure which side that is. That must be the bone over here. No, it can't be. I don't know. Yeah, it's the bone over here, and then there was a break in the other bone here. And I should know which is the ulna, which is the radius, and I don't. At any rate, they had tried to do what's called a close reduction, where thank goodness they use drugs. Okay, I'm a herbalist and a nutritionist, and I'm not pro-drug, but those drugs were good. They totally knocked me out, so I wouldn't remember a thing. My husband watched. He said they had nurses literally practically sitting on my shoulder, and nurses and doctors pulling on my wrist to try to get it all lined up. It didn't work. When I came out of the drugs, they sent me for more, which was only about 15 or 20 minutes. They sent me for more x-rays, and it wasn't good enough. The orthopedic surgeon said, no, not going to work. We need to do something else. And so here's the other break right in here, where the tip of this bone is broken off. And you can see there's a crack right in there. So, and this bone actually had moved. It wasn't quite lined up the way it's supposed to be. And they were very afraid that it was not going to heal well, and that I was going to end up with very limited mobility and serious arthritis. And I certainly didn't want that. I'm far too young and far too active to have a gimped arm, right? So after surgery, this is what I looked like in the cast. Laying in bed, trying to eat. You can see there's a little dish of, I think it might be yogurt there, 3 or 4 spoonfuls of that down with the nausea post-surgery. Oh my goodness, the surgical drugs were nasty, right? 3 hours in surgery. We've got this big, heavy cast on my arm. My fingers were so swollen, I couldn't move them. They were just sausages. They were so bad. But the doctors were excited. The doctors were really positive. Every doctor that came in kept running their hand along whatever finger was exposed and said, can you feel this? Can you feel this? And then finally my surgeon came in and said, can you feel this? I said, yes. He said, oh, thank goodness. And I said, why? And he said, because often when we do this, we can't see the nerve pathways and we damage the nerves and you end up with no feeling. And so the fact that I had all my feeling was like, yes, very happy day. So I had presence of mind, and I've got a handy dandy tripod, a desk tripod for my Iridology camera. So March 19th, so this is just not even quite a week after the accident, I took pictures of my eyes. You'll notice the f-stop is a different speed and the shutter is a different, f-stop is different, shutter speed is different, ISO is the same from the image 2 years ago. But look at that 20-minute mark. The fibers are exactly the same. Now, if we were believing the Ignaz von Petschle story, if that was accurate, what we would anticipate is there would be a big black line right down here. Because this arm, this is the left arm zone, had 2 broken bones with a double surgery, so 2 surgeries in one sitting. That's the bonus plan. And you would expect to see something. You'd expect to see some indication here that there had been a significant trauma. There isn't one. There isn't one. And so, you know, we go back again about 2 weeks after the surgery, and you can see I have hardware in my arms coming from different angles, plates, and so we've got 2 plates, 12 screws holding my arm together. You would think that having those kinds of foreign bodies in the eye might change something, right? Well, I am now, at this point, I'm semi-bionic, right? I've got, and I still have them, although I'm going to talk to the surgeon when this COVID thing is over and they're doing electives again. I'm going to talk about getting this side plate out because I don't like it. It's annoying and it hurts if I bump it. It feels like a serious pinch on my skin. Not happy. But having said that, I am thrilled with the outcome of the surgery because look at this. You know, I mean, we got good motion. We're getting the strength back. That takes a while. But this is cool, right? And here we go again. You can see that there are 2 plates, 2 screws, or 12 screws. So it's a very, yeah, it's just lots of hardware in there. And no, I do not set off metal detectors in the airport. I have flown since then. Just saying, just saying. Okay. So this is the one incision that's on the underside of my wrist, and they've healed so beautifully. Oh my goodness, I could not be happier. And then the other incision on the side of my wrist. This is, my husband has screws and bolts in his back, and his eyes look the same too. Lisa, yes, yes. So you know what? There you go. That was a surgery to put those in. That was a trauma, right? And if he's got the screws and the bolts in, I don't know if that was for scoliosis or if that is because he broke some vertebrae or something, but the eyes don't change with this. So another 2 weeks later, so this is before I had the next accident, we're looking in that area. Nada, nada. Everything is exactly the way it was 2 years prior to this, right? No change in the eyes. Now, those of you who've been taught that the eyes will change when there's a trauma, I am very sorry to disappoint you. I only try to teach what I know to be the truth and what I have proven for myself by studying myself and my clients. I've heard incidences where other instructors decades ago would publish textbooks of iridology, and what he did, or what they've done, is they've used before and after pictures, but they also used color filters. And in one case, someone has reported, and I wish I had seen the book, that the before and after pictures were actually not the same eye, but the author was trying to pass them off as the same eye. There were so many differences between the eyes that there's no way they could have been the same eye. So we need to be very careful about believing these before and after stories that say massive change, right? If what you're doing, if what you are claiming, no, let me rephrase this. The irides are inherent. They show your genetics. They show your genetic potentials. They do not show surgical changes or traumatic changes unless it's directly to the eyeball itself. Because doing that to my arm didn't change the genes. If I was still young enough to have children, my children would not inherit the genes for broken wrist and metal plates, right? They wouldn't. And so that's not going to show. So Lisa says, so what do we say was the very beginning of iridology now? Well, Lisa, you know what I like to go back to is that maybe Ignaz maybe we still need to give Ignatz credit. Maybe what he saw, he was an 11-year-old boy. We don't know what he saw, right? We have no idea what he saw. But maybe we still want to give him credit because he thought he saw something and that stimulated his interest. And right around there or shortly thereafter, there were several other people, mostly in Europe, or all in Europe, who were interested in the same thing and started doing similar research, wondering what the eyes would teach us about a person's health. And so I'm still happy to give Ignatz the credit for saying, there's something in the eyes. What is it? I'm happy to give all of the other people of his that followed him credit for doing research. Some of what they came up with was incorrect as well. But what's exciting here is that they had enough of an interest, and it got other people's interest so that research could start and could move forward. They were asking the right questions. And so I'm still happy to give Ignatz credit for getting the ball rolling. It's just that he was young. He didn't have a way of following up with research. He did not know that animal eyes and human eyes are vastly different, especially the iris, and that what happens in an animal eye cannot possibly happen in a human eye and vice versa. So the beginning is somebody asked the right questions and started asking and started looking for answers. And Ignatz was one of the first. Right? Does that sound fair, Lisa? So when we look at these eye images from oldest to newest, and we look at this area, you can see the camera rotates a bit because it's handheld, but there's no difference. The fiber structure is exactly the same. There's no big black line forming in there that disappears. It's all the same. All right. I'm going to sneeze. Just excuse me. All righty. There we go. Okay. So May 12th, Mother's Day. You see this big gap here? You're not supposed to have that. Just saying. Rule of thumb, don't wear high heels on stairs, and do your best to not land going down the stairs on a ceramic tile landing on your elbow, no less, right? So just saying. So this was my Mother's Day. The hilarious part of this is as I'm in the ER, waiting in the ER, my brother from the States calls to wish me a happy Mother's Day and a happy belated birthday, since my birthday was a few days before. And he asked, how is your arm healing? And he meant this. And I said, well, that depends on what you mean. And he said, well, you know, you broke your arm a while back. And I said, well, I'm in the ER again. I just broke my arm again. And so he kind of went, oh my goodness. And the word spread through the family. And it was very interesting at any rate. So here I am. Your elbow is also not shaped like this. This is that bone protruding, the swelling, not attached to the bone that it's supposed to be attached to. So not good. All right. When I got to the hospital, I suggested as they were getting me in that they should be giving me frequent flyer points. They thought that was cute, but they said they couldn't do that, which I was very sad about. So what about those marks some people have in their eyes? Difficult to explain without showing, but sometimes, for example, the pupil goes inside the rest of the iris. I don't know what you mean. The pupil goes inside the rest of the iris. Lika, I do not understand what you mean. The pupil goes inside the rest of the iris. I don't know if you mean the pupil expands. They've got a big pupil and it scrunches up the rest of the iris. Let me know if that's what you mean or if it's something else. So this is me post-surgery again, right? So this time, I don't know if you recall a missing girl. Her name was Maddie. She had Mark. Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. You need to finish that thought because you pressed send before. At any rate, this is me post-surgery with the elbow, and you know, and they do this casting all differently again, the medical half slab and all that good stuff. What I learned here, if you ever break your arm, this is not an iridology tip, this is an eye surgery tip. If you ever break your arm, the best shirts to wear are scrub tops. I went and bought a whole bunch of scrub tops, like the medical scrub tops. They're so cute nowadays because they have really wide sleeves. They're made out of, they've got short sleeves, so it's easy to get that cast through it. They've got a wide neck, super easy to put on, and they've got tons of pockets. So if you've got one hand that's not useful for a little while, you can put, you've got pockets to carry everything. So just saying. Okay. May 27th, so this is about 2 weeks later, looking at that arm zone again. You know, we still don't have anything. You would think that with 3 breaks in about 2 months and 1 double surgery and 1 single surgery, that there would be something, but this doesn't show up. Maddie said she had a mark very unique in her eye. I always wondered what that was. I don't know. I'm not sure who you're talking about with Maddie, and I haven't seen her eye photos, Lika, so I can't comment on that. Sorry about that. So then, okay, when you break your arm, especially a wrist here in Calgary, Alberta, you get assigned to the hand clinic, and it's the hand/cast clinic, and you go in literally from the date of surgery every 2 weeks for x-rays. I had more x-rays last year than I care to admit to. That would be the one drawback to all this. And so then when I got the elbow, I had to be going in every 2 weeks for elbow x-rays to make sure it was healing right. And then you keep going in every 2 weeks for about 6 or 8 weeks after to make sure that things are still good. So I had hundreds of x-rays, which was pretty bizarre. At any rate, so June 25th, this is March, April, May, June. So 3.5 months later, the wrist is still fine. We've still got, the metal plates have not gone anywhere. We look at the elbow, and what they've given me is this pin that actually goes through the arm with wire on it, this other nail that goes in. This is all anchored in, and it holds everything together. And if you know what you're looking for, you would see this little bump right here in my elbow. That is the end of this pin. And I understand they can take this out, which once COVID is over, I'm now past the 1 year mark, so they would consider taking it out for me. But let's look at the eye. Again, the arm zone. I'm not seeing anything different there. We've got the same gray spots, the same fiber structure. There's no big black line that's formed, nothing. So I'm making a sweeping generalization here. But I'm going to make this because I've seen a lot of clients who have reported that they've had breaks and things like that. And a few of them, you know, when they've got the break, they come in, but we've never seen a change. I am going to go out on that limb and tell you that the truth is that breaks, surgeries, and traumas do not change our genetic structure. That's a pretty thick limb, because that's the truth. And that because they don't change our genetic structure, they will not change the iris. What we might see is a change in the sclera, because the sclera is very dynamic. Now, I didn't do sclera photos. You can see, let's just pop back. Let's just do a little study on this really quick, like a bunny here, and see what we can see. I'm gonna go right back to the beginning, to the one back here. So if we're looking in the sclera down in here, we've got some blood vessels. I'm just looking around cameras to see my screen. We've got some blood vessels, and kind of lock that into your memory, because then we are going to pop back up to here. And you know what? We've got some light vessels, but there's nothing in there that says acute, that says congested, that says in serious trouble, that says, oh my goodness. So really, because of what this was, and probably in part because of how quickly I got it addressed and how well I've healed, there's nothing even showing in the sclera. So my conclusion again is breaks, surgeries, traumas don't change our genetic structure, don't change our iris fiber structure, which is what that black line that Ignaz was talking about would be. That would be a change in fiber structure. And so we cannot, and because this trauma doesn't change our genes, it's not going to change the eyes, and that would be that. I mean, if that was the case, then I would have had a lot of breaks in other areas that, you know, maybe up here, I don't know, but I didn't. right? So there you go. Is that all making sense for you? Peggy says you have a beautiful sclera. Oh, Peggy, you're so sweet. She's Peggy is one of my Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology grads. She there we go. That's fun to have her there. Any other questions or comments? If you have been believing in iris change and you've actually seen it, and you have before and after pictures that show, that show the iris change, where the fiber has actually changed, where a black line is formed with the trauma, and then that show, so you need before, after. So before, where there was nothing there, right after the trauma where there is something there, and then a while after with the healing to show that it's gone again. I would love to see those. I am totally into, if you have real evidence that debunks what I've said, I want to see it, because I want to have the best information to share with everybody who's following me. Does that make sense? I'm always open to learning new things and to examining new evidence, because that's how we progress the science. And that is so important. It is no good to get locked into a paradigm. I was, for about 10 or 12 years, a Jensenian iridologist. I did believe the Ignaz von Petschle story. I did believe that we would see healing lines in the iris, that we would see indications of trauma and healing in the iris. I practiced that for 10 or 12 years. And it was the fact that I never saw the changes I was promised I would see as I worked with my clients that made me question it, and that made me finally decide to look at constitutional iridology instead. All right, so just one more time before we wrap up, and thank you so much for being with me today. This is so much fun. I love doing these, and I hope you'll be one of my friends and be hanging out with me on these things. If you would like to grab a copy of the downloadable Constitutional Iridology Map, go to iridology.education. When that pop-up comes up that says you want to get this, put your information in and you will receive an email with the link to it, and you can download it. I will tell you that what you're going to see on the screen when you first open it, it looks really, really scratchy. I don't know why it looks like that, but when you print it up, it prints up beautifully. The colors are crisp and clean. There's no scratchiness to it. And so I just, encourage you to hop on over to iridology.education. When that little pop-up comes up, opt in, and let's get you learning some constitutional iridology with me. Thank you so much for being with me today. Do stay safe. Do stay healthy. And have a beautiful day. We will see you again on Friday. Bye for now.